Millionaire forced a poor boy to sing to humiliate him, but his talent surprised him. In the southern edge of Cincinnati, Ohio, tucked behind stretches of cracked sidewalks and weary brick buildings, lived 15-year-old Tyler Brooks. His home, a modest two-bedroom apartment above a corner laundromat, bore the silent weight of struggle. The wallpaper peeled in corners. The heating stuttered in winter. But it was his world, one stitched together with his mother's effort and the quiet resilience he carried in his eyes. Every morning before sunrise, Tyler would wake to the smell of onions sizzling and bread toasting. His mother, Teresa Brooks, prepared homemade sandwiches and pastries that she sold at local fairs, flea markets, and community events. Tyler helped her without complaint, packing the food carefully, loading the old minivan, and handling the cash box. She often called him her right hand, not just because he helped, but because he made the load feel lighter. Most days, Tyler wore the same worn sneakers, patched jeans, and a faded hoodie. But one thing remained unchanged no matter the weather: his black over-ear headphones. They weren't the sleek, expensive kind. In fact, they had a piece of duct tape wrapped around the left speaker. But they were his prized possession, not because of how they looked, but because of what they gave him. Inside those headphones lived Tyler's secret. He sang. Not just hummed or mouthed lyrics like most kids did. He truly sang. Deeply, soulfully, like the music lived in his bones. While sorting bread rolls or wiping down tables, he'd quietly sing along with Sam Cooke, Adele, John Legend. Sometimes his voice was barely audible, a murmur under his breath. Other times, when alone, he let it bloom, eyes closed, imagining a stage that didn't exist yet. Music had become a refuge since his father left 2 years earlier. No note. No explanation. Just one evening, gone. The silence that followed nearly swallowed them whole, but Tyler found a strange kind of salvation in melody. Singing became a way to speak feelings that had no words. Pain, confusion, hope, they all had harmonies now. At school, Tyler remained invisible by choice. He kept to himself, avoided attention, and avoided confrontation even more. The few friends he once had drifted away, uninterested in someone who disappeared every afternoon to help his mom sell turkey wraps and homemade lemonade. But Tyler didn't mind. He preferred the company of voices in his headphones anyway. One Friday afternoon, after helping at a small farmer's market near the university, his mom handed him a folded flyer. Her eyes lit up with cautious excitement. "They're doing a big fundraiser at Crescent Heights next week," she said, referring to the most elite private school in the city. "They're letting outside vendors come in for the first time. I signed us up for a table." Tyler raised an eyebrow. Crescent Heights was the kind of school kids like him only saw in movies: iron gates, ivy-covered walls, and students who wore tailored uniforms and talked about yacht clubs and ski vacations. He had never even been near it. "It could be good," she added, hopeful. "Lots of people, and they've got money to spend." He nodded slowly. The idea made him nervous, but he wasn't about to make her second-guess herself. "Yeah. Sounds good." That night, as he lay on the thin mattress on the floor, he'd given the actual bed to his mom after the frame broke, he stared at the ceiling, headphones on, whisper singing along to "All of Me." The thought of walking into a place like Crescent Heights made his stomach twist. He imagined polished floors, gold-trimmed hallways, students who'd laugh at his hoodie and shoes. Still, a part of him, small but stubborn, flickered with something else. A strange pull. Maybe curiosity. Maybe more. The following days passed in a blur. They prepped double the food. His mom rented a small tent for their table. Tyler helped design a simple cardboard sign that read, "Brooks Kitchen, homemade with heart." When Thursday came, they packed the van before sunrise and drove across town. Tyler watched the city change through the window. Gas stations turned to boutiques, rusted fences gave way to manicured lawns. And then, there it was. Crescent Heights Academy stood tall and pristine, a modern palace with high arches and white stone. Students strolled across the courtyard in crisp blazers, some arriving in black sedans driven by chauffeurs. Tyler felt immediately out of place. But he squared his shoulders and helped his mother unload, determined not to show it. By 10 o'clock in the morning, the fundraiser was in full swing. Parents and students weaved between tables of artisanal goods, local treats, and flashy school exhibits. Tyler stood beside their stand, quietly managing sales while his mother handed out samples with a warm smile. But then, everything shifted. As he stepped back to grab more napkins, he bumped into someone, hard. The tray in his hands tilted. A sandwich slid off and landed at the feet of a boy in a navy blue jacket, a silver-embroidered CW shining on the pocket. The boy looked down, then up, his expression sharp. "Watch where you're going," he snapped. Tyler opened his mouth to apologize, but before he could, another voice chimed in. "Liam, you good?" A tall kid in a lacrosse jersey stepped beside the boy in the blazer. Liam. Tyler knew that name. Everyone in Cincinnati did. Liam Whitmore, son of Charles Whitmore, owner of Whitmore Enterprises, and heir to one of the largest fortunes in the state. "Yeah," Liam muttered, brushing invisible dust off his jacket. Then, eyes narrowing, he added with a smirk, "Just bumped into the help." Tyler froze. A few nearby students chuckled. The tray felt heavy in his hands. He bent down, picked up the sandwich, and walked back to the stand without a word. But as he slipped his headphones back over his ears, he could feel the weight of Liam's gaze still on him. And something told him, deep in his gut, that this wasn't over. Not yet. Tyler kept his headphones on, even though no music played. It was his shield now, a way to block out the sting of what had just happened. Liam's words echoed in his mind, "Just bumped into the help." That sentence, delivered so carelessly, clung to him like smoke. He had seen kids like Liam before, but never up close, never with that much venom behind a smirk. The fundraiser buzzed around him. Parents sipped coffee from branded cups, students laughed in groups, and the local press snapped photos of smiling faculty. Tyler stayed silent behind the table, pretending to count bills while his mind wandered. His mother, unaware of the encounter, chatted warmly with a couple who complimented the cinnamon rolls. She looked proud, and that gave him enough strength to push the incident aside, for now. Just before noon, the sun grew hotter, and the crowd thickened. The aroma of food drifted across the courtyard, and soon, their booth was attracting a steady line. Tyler stayed busy filling bags, organizing samples, and managing change with practiced hands. For a moment, it felt like any other fair. Until a familiar voice returned. "Well, if it isn't the sandwich boy." Tyler looked up to see Liam again, this time flanked by two friends. One wore sunglasses despite the shade. The other filmed casually with his phone, pretending not to. "Busy day, huh?" Liam leaned slightly over the table, eyes scanning the containers. "Tell me, do you sing too? Or just make sandwiches?" Tyler blinked, unsure how to respond. Before he could speak, Liam snatched one of the paper menus from the table and held it up like it was a trophy. "This your menu? Brooks Kitchen, homemade with heart? Cute." He glanced back at his friends. "Sounds like a food truck that couldn't afford wheels." The one with the phone laughed. Tyler's mother, now noticing the interaction, walked over with a kind but firm expression. "Can I help you boys with something?" Liam turned to her with exaggerated politeness. "Just admiring the branding. Very rustic." She smiled tightly. "Well, if you'd like to buy something, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, we're a bit busy." Tyler wanted to pull her away, to tell her not to bother. But she stood her ground with quiet dignity, and after a moment, Liam stepped back. "No thanks. I'm allergic to poor taste." They walked off laughing, and Tyler clenched his fists under the table. His mother placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. "Don't let them get to you," she said softly. "Boys like that only know what they've been shown." He nodded, but the words did little to soothe the heat rising in his chest. The day dragged on. Though sales stayed strong, Tyler couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Several times he caught Liam and his friends glancing their way, whispering and smirking. But nothing more happened, until the closing ceremony. By 4 o'clock, most vendors were packing up. The school's main speaker system clicked on, and a voice announced the start of student performances. A temporary stage had been set up near the gymnasium steps, complete with a microphone and simple sound setup. Parents gathered in folding chairs while students hovered in clusters. Tyler helped his mom pack the remaining items into crates, grateful they'd be leaving soon. But fate had other plans. As he hauled a cooler back toward the van, someone bumped into him, again. Not hard this time, but deliberately. "Hey!" Liam's voice rang out, loud enough to turn heads. "Didn't mean to scare you. I just had a question." Tyler sighed and turned slowly. "What?" Liam gestured toward the stage, now lit with soft overhead lights. "You're always wearing those headphones. People say you sing. That true?" Tyler didn't answer. "Well," Liam continued, "we've got an open mic. How about you give us a little show? Let's hear what the sandwich boy can do." A ripple of laughter moved through the surrounding students. Tyler felt the weight of a dozen eyes turned toward him. His mother, watching from their booth, seemed confused. She started walking over. Liam raised his voice again. "Come on, man. What are you scared of? Just a couple of notes. You do sing, right? Or was that just part of the branding?" Tyler looked around. Some kids pulled out phones. Others watched with amused curiosity. The stage suddenly didn't seem so far away anymore. The crowd didn't seem friendly. "I'm not interested," he said, turning to walk away. But Liam wasn't finished. "Ah, come on. What's the matter? Can't sing without an apron on?" This time, the laughter was louder. Tyler stopped in his tracks. He turned back, his expression unreadable. For a second, there was only silence. Then Liam did something Tyler hadn't expected. He stepped up onto the stage, grabbed the mic, and spoke into it. "Everyone, quick announcement. This guy here thinks he's a singer. He's been walking around all day with those headphones, humming like he's auditioning for The Voice. So I thought, let's give him a real chance." He pointed dramatically at Tyler. "Come on up. Let's see if the help can hold a note." The crowd murmured, some cheering, others whispering awkwardly. Tyler's mother reached his side, confused and clearly upset. "You don't have to do this," she said quietly. "Let's go." But something in Tyler froze. A swirl of emotions passed through him: shame, anger, fear, defiance. He glanced at the stage, then back at Liam. His fists loosened. His breath slowed. "No," he said, barely above a whisper. "Maybe I do." He stepped forward. Liam's smirk widened, as if he had won. The camera phones rose. Tyler climbed the few wooden steps to the stage, each one heavier than the last. The mic crackled as Liam handed it to him, clearly expecting a disaster. "Ladies and gentlemen," Liam announced, direct from the sandwich stand, "the one, the only, Tyler." A mix of claps and awkward laughter filled the space. Tyler stared at the mic. The cord was tangled slightly. He adjusted it with careful fingers. Then he closed his eyes. He thought of his room, of the songs he sang at night, of the cracked ceiling above his mattress. He thought of his mother standing below, watching him not as a performer, but as her son. And he thought of his father's silence, the weight it left behind, and the voice it had somehow created in its place. Without another word, he raised the mic to his lips. The crowd hushed. The first note escaped like a breath, soft, uncertain. But then it grew. He sang the opening of Hallelujah, not like someone imitating a singer, but like someone remembering something deep inside themselves. His voice was raw and clear, touched with emotion but steady with control. The air seemed to shift. Conversation stopped. Even Liam, smirking moments before, now stood still. Phones that had been poised to capture embarrassment now captured awe. Tyler didn't look at anyone. He didn't need to. He was somewhere else, in the music, in the words, in a place where judgment couldn't reach him. Each verse built on the last, trembling with honesty. When he reached the final chorus, there was no sound in the courtyard but his voice. And when he finished, there was silence. Total silence. Then, applause. Not forced, not polite. Real. Loud. Sustained. People stood. Some even shouted. Tyler lowered the mic and stepped back, heart pounding in his chest. He didn't smile. He didn't bow. He just stood there, stunned, as the sound washed over him like a tide he never expected. Down below, his mother covered her mouth with one hand. And in the middle of the crowd, Liam Whitmore stood frozen, silent, expression unreadable, as everything around him changed. The applause lingered longer than anyone expected. Even as Tyler stepped down from the stage, people kept clapping, mothers, teachers, students, even a few vendors who had paused their packing to witness the unexpected. He moved like someone walking through fog, unsure of where the ground was, unsure if what had happened was real. When he reached the bottom of the steps, his mother wrapped her arms around him without a word. Her face was damp with tears she hadn't realized were there, and her hands trembled as they clutched his back. But Tyler didn't cry. He couldn't. Not then. He just held on to her tightly, as if letting go might snap him back into the moment before it all changed. Around them, murmurs started spreading like wildfire. Did you see that? That kid, he was incredible. I got the whole thing on video. Even teachers whispered to one another, surprised not only by the performance but by the depth in a voice they had never heard before. Tyler barely noticed when a student from the school's AV club approached him to ask if he could post the performance to the school's social media page. His mother answered for him with a cautious nod. She wasn't sure if it was the right decision, but something about the boy standing beside her, something changed in his eyes, told her that he needed to be seen now. Not for attention. Not for revenge. But for something else entirely. And yet, not everyone in the courtyard was celebrating. Across the crowd, standing half-shadowed by one of the white tents, Liam Whitmore stared at the stage with a clenched jaw. His friends stood awkwardly behind him, no longer filming, no longer laughing. His carefully orchestrated humiliation had crumbled before his eyes, and worse, he'd given Tyler the stage, handed him the spotlight on a silver platter. The boy he tried to mock had stolen the entire event with nothing but a song. Liam muttered something under his breath, his face burning with the kind of embarrassment he wasn't used to feeling. This was rigged, he said sharply, though no one around him had asked. He probably practiced that 100 times. Probably even had the AV club help him out beforehand. No one responded. Not even his closest friend. As the crowd began to disperse and families returned to their booths and cars, Liam stayed rooted in place. His pride throbbed in his chest, louder than the music that had played earlier, louder than the voice he had tried to drown out. What angered him the most wasn't just that Tyler had sung well, it was that everyone had believed in him so quickly, like he had been a star all along, just waiting for a moment. Later that evening, the courtyard emptied, and the school staff began taking down tables and lights. Tyler and his mother loaded their remaining supplies into the van quietly. She wanted to say something, to talk about what had just happened, but every time she looked at her son's face, so calm, so inward, she decided to wait. Not everything needed to be spoken right away. But not far from them, hidden near the gym doors, Liam had stayed behind. He watched as Tyler opened the back of the van. Then, taking a slow breath, he walked over, alone this time. Tyler saw him coming. His posture stiffened. "I didn't need a show," Liam said flatly, stopping a few feet away. "You didn't have to be dramatic about it." Tyler turned slowly, brows furrowed. "What are you talking about?" All this, Liam gestured vaguely to the now empty stage. "Trying to make a statement. I mean, come on. Hallelujah? Seriously?" Tyler's mouth tightened. "You told me to sing." I did. Right, Liam snorted. You did more than sing. You acted like you were some star. I didn't act like anything, Tyler replied, his voice low but firm. You dragged me up there to humiliate me. I just didn't let you win. Liam's face flushed. You think this changes anything? Tyler didn't respond. He didn't have to. The silence between them said enough. I know people like you, Liam said, his voice rising slightly. You get one lucky moment, and suddenly you think you belong. That struck something deep. Tyler stepped forward, closer now, eyes unwavering. I never said I belonged. You're the one obsessed with reminding me I don't. Liam opened his mouth to reply, but nothing came. Tyler turned back to the van. As he did, Liam muttered, let's see how long they remember you. And just like that, he walked off, disappearing into the fading light. But the world had already started remembering. That night, the performance video posted by the AV Club gained traction, fast. It wasn't just the school's students sharing it. Alumni, parents, even a few local influencers reposted it with captions like, "This kid gave me chills," and "Talent lives everywhere, proof right here." By midnight, the clip had over 8,000 views. Tyler didn't know. He was asleep on the floor of his room, headphones around his neck, unaware that a door had just creaked open in a world that had never looked his way before. The next day, everything was different. At school, students who had barely glanced at him before now whispered as he walked by. Some nodded. Some smiled. A few even stopped to say they had seen the video. His math teacher pulled him aside after class and said, "That was really something, Tyler." Truly. Even his guidance counselor, usually detached and overwhelmed, asked if he had ever considered performing more publicly. But not all attention was welcome. At lunch, as he ate alone at his usual spot near the vending machines, Liam walked past with his group. One of them muttered, "Enjoy it while it lasts." Another added, "Let's see if he can do anything besides that one song." Tyler said nothing. He had no interest in arguments. He had spent years surviving in silence. If anything, he had grown used to it. That afternoon, a teacher approached him in the hallway. Mr. Reynolds, the school's choir director and one of the older faculty members, tapped him gently on the shoulder. "Tyler Brooks?" He turned, wary. "My name is Arthur Reynolds. I heard about your performance at Crescent Heights." He smiled gently. "I wasn't there, unfortunately. But I watched the video. Twice, actually." Tyler blinked. "Oh. Thanks." Reynolds chuckled. "It was more than impressive. Your tone, your control, very rare. Especially for someone untrained." "I just sing," Tyler said quietly. "Well, I teach at the Cincinnati Academy of Music. I also help with recruitment," Reynolds continued, handing Tyler a business card. "We're holding auditions next month for full scholarships. I think you should come." Tyler stared at the card. "I don't think I could afford the classes. Or the time. I help my mom." "Scholarship means everything," Reynolds assured him. "And if transportation is the problem, we'll figure it out. Just think about it." He walked off, leaving Tyler staring at the small white rectangle in his hand, the Academy's logo embossed in gold. That evening, Tyler sat at the kitchen table with his mother, the business card resting between them. She read it silently. Then looked at him. "What do you want, Tyler?" she asked. "I don't know," he answered honestly. "But I don't want to feel small anymore." She reached across the table and took his hand. "Then let's figure it out." Outside, in a different part of town, Liam watched the same video again on his phone. This time, alone in his room. He played the part where the crowd clapped 3 times in a row. And every time, he paused right before Tyler looked up from the microphone. Something in that look unsettled him. Not because it was proud, but because it was peaceful. And that, more than anything, made Liam realize, he hadn't just failed to humiliate Tyler. He had awakened him. The morning sun leaked through the slats of the blinds, casting thin, uneven stripes across Tyler's small bedroom floor. The air was still and quiet, except for the faint hum of traffic outside and the occasional creak from the apartment above. Tyler sat on the edge of his mattress, fully dressed, holding Mr. Reynolds' business card in his hand for what felt like the 100th time. His fingers traced the embossed lettering without looking at it. The silence had weight. He had told himself that by morning, the excitement from the performance would fade, that reality would settle back in. But it hadn't. If anything, the sense that something had changed only deepened. The world wasn't louder now. It was sharper. Every word he heard, every glance he caught at school, every message on his cheap flip phone from people who had never messaged him before, they all pointed to the same uncomfortable truth: people had seen him. And he had to decide what that meant. Downstairs, the sound of pans clinking meant his mother was already preparing orders for a Saturday community event. He walked into the kitchen to find her slicing peppers with her usual rhythmic precision, hair tied back, apron already stained. She smiled when she saw him, though her eyes were a little more tired than usual. "You didn't sleep much," she said, not asking, just observing. He shrugged. "Was thinking." She nodded, finishing her slice. "About the audition?" He hesitated, then leaned against the counter. "I don't know if I should go." She wiped her hands and turned to face him fully. "Why not?" "Because it's not who I am. I've never done anything like that. I've never been on a stage before that day. I don't read music. I don't know the right songs. I don't have anything. No nice clothes. No way to get there. No reason to believe I belong in a place like that." "You mean, no one ever told you that you did?" Tyler looked down. She stepped closer. "Let me ask you something. When you were up there singing, did you feel like you didn't belong?" He paused, remembering the feeling, the stillness, the silence before the applause, the way everything else disappeared. "No," he said quietly. She nodded. "Then maybe that's your answer." They both stood silently for a moment, the sounds of the morning creeping back into the room. "But if we're being honest," she added, "I don't know how we'd get you there either. I can't drive you every day. I've got shifts. And we definitely can't afford a car or rides." Tyler didn't respond. He knew the math. He had known it before he even let himself consider saying yes. They packed the van together, and for a while, he let himself get lost in the repetition of work. Folding tables, paper bags, coolers of lemonade. As they drove to the church parking lot where the event was being held, he watched the city blur past: corner stores, rusting bus stops, rows of houses with broken gutters and plastic chairs on porches. It was familiar. It was survival. But something in him wondered if he was meant to stop surviving and start living. Later that afternoon, as they wrapped up sales under a canopy of heat and gospel music, Tyler heard someone calling his name. He turned to see a girl about his age approaching the booth. Her hair was in tight braids, and she wore a t-shirt with the logo of the local performing arts center. "Are you Tyler Brooks?" He nodded, cautious. "I'm Alana. I volunteer with the academy downtown. One of our teachers showed us your video yesterday." She smiled. "I just wanted to say it was amazing." "Thanks," he said, unsure what else to offer. "I know this is random, but I take the bus to the academy from right near here. If you're thinking about auditioning, I can show you the route. It's actually not bad once you get used to it." Tyler blinked. "You take the bus every day?" "2 buses, actually. But yeah." She shrugged like it was no big deal. "Some of us can't Uber everywhere." He smiled, the smallest one, but it was real. She handed him a folded paper. "This is the schedule. The number 2 connects straight to the 79, and that one drops off right near the entrance. It's not glamorous, but it works." "Why are you helping me?" Alana tilted her head. "Because someone helped me. And because we need more people like you in that place." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Tyler staring at the printed bus schedule like it was a map to another world. The next few days passed in strange contradiction. At school, the buzz around Tyler hadn't faded. A local reporter reached out asking for an interview, and Mr. Reynolds confirmed his offer for an audition. Some students treated him differently now, saying hi in the halls, inviting him to sit with them at lunch. Others, especially Liam and his circle, made sure to remind him with every glare or muttered joke that he was still an outsider. Tyler didn't react to any of it. Not because he didn't care, but because he was still trying to decide what it all meant. He moved through his routine, classes, helping his mom, falling asleep with music in his ears, but something had cracked open, and it wouldn't close again. One evening, while folding laundry in the living room, his mother sat beside him and spoke gently. "If you decide to try," she said, "we'll figure it out." "We always do." He didn't answer right away. But when he finally did, his voice was clear. "I want to try." She looked at him, quiet for a moment, then nodded. "Okay. Then we'll try together." The next morning, they stood at the bus stop together, just past 6 o'clock. The air was still gray with early light, and the sidewalk smelled faintly of dew and exhaust. Tyler carried a small backpack with an extra shirt, a water bottle, and a notebook filled with lyrics and scribbled melodies. When the first bus pulled up, he climbed aboard, his mother waving from the curb. He found a seat near the window and watched the city drift by as he moved toward a place he never thought he'd see from the inside. The ride was long. He transferred once, just like the schedule said. And by the time he stepped off near the academy, his legs were stiff, and his nerves had begun to gather in his chest like thunderclouds. The Cincinnati Academy of Music was unlike any building he had entered. Its glass doors reflected the city back at him, and inside, marble floors led to tall ceilings and echoing hallways filled with the sounds of instruments warming up. Students of all backgrounds walked confidently with instrument cases, sheet music, and backpacks slung over their shoulders. Tyler felt invisible again, but not in the way he used to. This time, it felt like he was standing at the edge of something real. Mr. Reynolds met him in the lobby, smiling with calm encouragement. "Glad you came." Tyler nodded, his throat dry. "You don't need to impress anyone today," Reynolds said. "Just show us who you are." The audition room was small, with a single piano, a chair, and 3 judges seated at a long table. Tyler stood before them, heart pounding. They asked a few questions. His name. His background. His experience with music. "I don't have any training," he admitted. "That's okay," one of the judges said. "What will you sing for us?" He took a breath. "A song I wrote." There was a brief pause. One of them raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." He closed his eyes and began. The lyrics were simple, drawn from nights alone and long walks home. The melody wasn't perfect. But his voice was full, trembling in parts, but honest. When he finished, the room stayed quiet for a few seconds too long. Then one of the judges nodded slowly. "Thank you, Tyler." He left the room unsure of what would come next. But as he stepped back into the lobby, the noise of students returning from classes filling the space, he didn't feel lost anymore. For the first time in his life, he had chosen something. And now, he was waiting to see if that choice would choose him back. 3 days after the audition, Tyler received a call from a number he didn't recognize. He was sitting on the apartment floor folding takeout bags when his phone buzzed, and for a moment, he almost didn't answer. Something about the unknown number filled him with dread. But curiosity, or maybe hope, won. "Hello? Is this Tyler Brooks?" "Yes. This is Camille Denton, Director of Outreach at the Cincinnati Academy of Music. I'm calling to let you know that your audition has been reviewed, and we'd like to offer you a place in our summer preparatory program. Full scholarship." Tyler didn't speak. He wasn't sure he could. "You impressed the panel," she continued. "Not just with your voice, but with your original piece. There's raw talent there. If you accept, orientation is next Monday." he finally managed a breath. I accept. She laughed gently. Good. We're looking forward to seeing what you can do, Tyler. He ended the call in silence, the phone still pressed to his ear even after the line disconnected. He stared at the far wall of the living room for a long moment, as if waiting for someone to confirm what had just happened. His mother appeared in the doorway. Everything okay? He looked up slowly. Then smiled. They said yes. She didn't respond right away. Then her eyes welled, and she crossed the room to sit beside him on the floor. She didn't cry like she had after the performance. This time it was quieter. Fuller. He rested his head on her shoulder, and together they sat there, still surrounded by bags and half-folded boxes, as if the world had paused just for them. The following week, Tyler stepped into the academy not as a visitor but as a student. The summer program was intense. Classes on vocal technique, music theory, stage presence. He was surrounded by students who had grown up in this world, who spoke in scales and auditioned for roles like breathing. At first, he felt small again. But it didn't last long. Every time he sang, something shifted. His instructors noticed it early. He didn't just hit notes. He felt them. Even when he struggled with the technical terms or stumbled through sight-reading exercises, he sang with a depth that none of them could teach. By the second week, the Academy announced a mid-session performance showcase open to the public. Students were encouraged to perform either solos or group numbers. Many saw it as an opportunity to impress scouts, visiting faculty, or, at the very least, peers. Tyler didn't sign up at first. He told himself it wasn't necessary. He was already in. He had nothing to prove. But the truth was, he feared he might not live up to what people had started to believe about him. Then, one afternoon in a vocal rehearsal, Ms. Bell, the sharp-eyed instructor with a long history of Broadway credits, called him aside after class. "Tyler, I've been patient. But I need to ask, why haven't you signed up for the showcase?" He hesitated. "I don't know if I'm ready." She raised an eyebrow. "Ready for what? To be heard?" He looked down. She softened. "Your voice isn't just good. It's important. When you sing, people don't just listen. They stop. They feel something. That's rare." He didn't answer, but the next morning, he wrote his name on the sign-up sheet. The day of the performance arrived warm and bright. The auditorium filled quickly, students, instructors, parents, strangers from the community. Even a few local media outlets sent representatives, curious after the buzz around the Academy's latest scholarship student. Backstage, Tyler stood near the curtain, dressed simply in a dark shirt and slacks. His palms were damp. His throat felt tight. Alana passed by and gave him a quick nod. "You'll kill it," she whispered. But Tyler didn't feel powerful. He felt like he was 15 again, folding sandwiches, trying not to be noticed. The host announced his name. He stepped out onto the stage. The lights were hot. The crowd, silent. He took the mic. And then, he sang. The song wasn't Hallelujah this time. It was another original. One he had written during the second week, late at night after returning home on the bus, thinking about what it meant to have a voice no one expected. The lyrics told of invisibility and discovery. Of fear and boldness. Of being pulled between two worlds, one that knew his name and one that never asked. He didn't perform it like he was auditioning. He performed it like a confession. Halfway through the first verse, the room changed. Conversations stopped. Fidgeting stopped. Even the cameras stopped moving. The crowd seemed to lean in, unconsciously, drawn by something they couldn't place. By the final chorus, a hush had fallen so complete it felt sacred. He sang the last note and let the silence hang. Then, an eruption. The applause hit like a wave, louder than before, sharper, more urgent. People stood. Some cheered. One of the judges from his audition clapped slowly, looking both stunned and proud. Backstage, the other performers stared at him as he returned. Some offered nods. Others looked away. But Ms. Bell stepped forward with no hesitation. "You just raised the bar," she said simply. The next morning, his performance clip surfaced online. Within hours, it was being shared by music pages, talent scouts, even a few celebrities. One producer commented, "This kid is going to wreck the charts in 5 years." But none of that reached Liam Whitmore, yet. At Crescent Heights, summer classes were optional, but Liam had been attending business prep sessions per his father's demand. He heard about the second viral video from a classmate. When he watched it alone in the study room, his reaction was not rage or mockery. It was something colder. He felt himself slipping from control, not over Tyler, but over the narrative. He had always shaped how people saw others. He could elevate or humiliate with a sentence. Now, the boy he tried to belittle was becoming someone beyond reach. Later that week, at a social event hosted by his grandfather's foundation, Liam stood by a glass of sparkling water, pretending to listen to small talk. Henry Whitmore, elegant in a navy suit, made his way through the room, shaking hands and speaking with the air of someone who had seen too much to be impressed by anything. At one point, Liam noticed his grandfather speaking with a middle-aged man wearing a lanyard with the Academy's crest. They shook hands warmly, exchanged a few words, and then Henry turned to look directly at him. "Liam," he said, calling him over. Liam approached slowly. "Have you seen the video of the boy who sang at your school's fundraiser?" Liam tensed. "Yeah. Everyone has." Henry narrowed his eyes. "Did you know he's now representing Cincinnati in the state showcase for youth performers?" "No," Liam said carefully. Henry tilted his head. "Curious. From what I hear, you were the one who gave him the microphone that day." Liam didn't reply. His grandfather smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Funny how a moment meant to humiliate became his beginning. Liam flushed, said nothing, and walked away as the room around him shifted once more. And somewhere else in the city, Tyler stood at a street corner waiting for the bus, unaware that his voice had reached farther than he could yet imagine. The following week brought more change than Tyler had experienced in years. His second performance video, raw and unfiltered, had begun to circulate well beyond the city limits. Blogs about undiscovered talent picked it up. A regional arts nonprofit shared it on their homepage. A minor record label even reached out, requesting a meeting, though the message went unanswered, buried under dozens of new notifications. But Tyler himself remained distant from all that. He continued attending the summer program, catching early buses and sitting in the back with his headphones around his neck. He didn't speak much during breaks, and he didn't react to whispers in the hallway. He focused on his classes, absorbed every critique, and kept writing in his notebook, filling it with lyrics and melodies he rarely shared. Still, he wasn't invisible anymore. And not everyone celebrated that. Liam watched the growing attention from a distance. What had begun as a ripple was now a current too strong to ignore. His grandfather, a man whose approval he had chased for years, spoke more and more about that boy whenever they crossed paths. And it wasn't just admiration, there was curiosity in Henry Whitmore's tone, a kind of fascination that Liam had never seen directed at anyone but himself. That shift festered inside him. And so, one Thursday afternoon, Liam made a decision. He called in a favor. Within 24 hours, a social media account appeared, anonymous, but polished. It had a neutral name, a handful of vague followers, and its first post was a screenshot from Tyler's first viral video. The caption read, "Great voice. Shame he's only got one trick. Wonder what happens when the spotlight fades?" The post wasn't cruel. It was subtle. But the comments began to fill with familiar phrases: overrated, just another one-hit wonder, let's see if he's still around in 6 months. It didn't take long for other accounts to share it. Tyler didn't see the post until that evening. He was in the kitchen, eating reheated pasta beside his mother when Alana texted a link with a single line, "Ignore it. They're jealous." He clicked anyway. At first, he didn't understand the purpose. Then it hit him, not the words, but the pattern. The way the criticism was shaped to look like opinion, the way the tone wasn't aggressive, just dismissive. It was crafted. Designed. He closed the phone and put it aside. His mother, seeing the tension in his shoulders, asked what was wrong. "Just noise," he said. She looked at him for a long moment. "You don't have to prove anything, Tyler." "I know." But part of him still wanted to. The next day, he arrived at the academy early and requested a meeting with Mr. Reynolds. The old instructor welcomed him in and waited as Tyler sat, hesitant. "I need to ask something," Tyler said. "About the program. Is it possible to perform again? Before the end of the summer?" Reynolds studied him. "The final showcase is in 3 weeks. I mean before that. Something public. Somewhere outside the school." Reynolds nodded slowly. "We have a small community concert next weekend. Nothing formal. Just local guests, families, a few sponsors. You want to sing?" Tyler hesitated. Then nodded. "Yes." Reynolds smiled faintly. "Then let's make it happen." What Tyler didn't know was that Liam had been preparing for something similar, only in reverse. Through a well-connected friend in student media, he pitched an article to the Crescent Heights newsletter, titled, "The Dangers of Sudden Fame, When Viral Moments Become the Whole Story." It didn't name Tyler directly, but the implication was obvious. It painted a picture of a culture that over-celebrated underdog stories without examining whether the talent was sustainable. Liam believed in the power of narrative. And he was trying to reclaim control of one. But even narratives have limits. The community concert took place in a modest neighborhood center with folding chairs and a small wooden platform instead of a stage. Tyler wore the same shirt he had used in rehearsal. No lights. No microphones. Just people, neighbors, friends, and some parents from the academy who had come more out of politeness than expectation. He stood in front of them with only his voice and a quiet guitar accompaniment provided by Alana. No cameras. No scripts. And he sang. It wasn't a perfect song. It wasn't polished. But it was real. It spoke of small spaces and big dreams, of fear and endurance. And once again, something happened. Not silence this time. Stillness. Even the children in the back stopped squirming. Even the rustling programs went still. And when he finished, there was no burst of applause, only a gradual swell, like people waking from something they hadn't realized they were in. Afterward, a woman from the neighborhood approached him. Her voice was soft, her eyes full. "My daughter is deaf," she said, pointing to a young girl beside her. "She couldn't hear you. But she watched you. And she said she felt the song. I just wanted you to know." Tyler nodded, unable to speak. Reynolds watched the moment from a distance and said nothing. Later that night, Tyler walked home alone. The air was warm, and the sky was clear. He passed a street musician near the bus stop, an old man with a saxophone playing to no one. Tyler dropped the only cash he had into the case and kept walking, his hands in his pockets, the weight in his chest somehow lighter. Back in his room, he opened his notebook and began writing again. New lines. New melody. He didn't check his phone. But others did. Word of the performance spread, not because it was filmed, but because people talked. A local blogger wrote a post titled, "I was there, and he's the real thing." The school director received 3 emails from small concert halls offering to feature Tyler at upcoming showcases. And in the following days, his presence at the academy shifted. More students spoke to him. Not because of viral fame, but because of something else. Respect. Not the hollow kind, but the kind that recognizes work, honesty, and the courage to show up again. Meanwhile, Liam's article was published. It received polite engagement, a few comments, some reposts, but nothing remarkable. One reply stood out, from an anonymous user. Seems like someone's afraid of losing control of the story." The words haunted Liam more than he admitted. Especially because he recognized the truth in them. And far from the glare of stage lights, Tyler kept moving forward. No longer for attention, but for himself. As August began to cool the Cincinnati air, Tyler settled into the rhythm of the summer prep program with growing purpose. The morning bus rides, which at first had felt like an obligation, had become moments of quiet reflection. The city rolled past his window, brick row houses, chain-link fences catching the sunlight, and graffiti-tagged walls, yet none of it pulled him back. He was moving forward in a way he had never allowed himself before. One afternoon during a break, Mr. Reynolds asked him to stay after class. Tyler met him in the empty practice hallway, where the echo of a distant piano hung in the air. Reynolds held a letter, stamped and folded. "I've just received this." He handed it to Tyler. Tyler recognized the philanthropic seal. It was from the Whitmore Arts Foundation. His heart paused. Reynolds continued, "They saw your performance at the community concert. They're offering something unprecedented." Tyler opened the letter with trembling fingers. The handwritten note invited him to perform at the upcoming Whitmore Community Gala, an event organized by the foundation that would raise funds to support arts programs across Cincinnati. The invitation was official, the tone respectful, and the expectations clear. He would sing a short set, and representatives from music conservatories and local media would be present. He looked up at Mr. Reynolds, confused. "They want you to be part of the gala," Reynolds said softly. "This is something new. Big." Tyler swallowed. "Why me?" Reynolds smiled gently. "Because your voice changed something. People felt it. Word traveled fast." When Tyler returned home that evening, he found his mother sitting on the couch, eyes full of questions. "They want you to sing, at a gala," he said, voice unsteady. She stared at him, surprised, then smiled with restrained joy. He recognized that look, the same that had filled her eyes when he first sang at the fundraiser. "I don't know what this means," he admitted. She reached for his hand. "It means you're being seen." That night, Tyler couldn't sleep. He lay on his mattress thinking of all the stages he had known, the school courtyard, the academy auditorium, the neighborhood center. This would be something else entirely, formal, polished, full of expectations. When the evening of the gala arrived, Tyler's mother drove him through streets lined with lampposts, their bulbs casting warm halos on the pavement. He wore a simple black shirt and slacks, clean, neat, but still felt exposed. The gala was being held at the Andrew J. Brady Music Center, a space he knew by reputation, modern, glowing glass walls, indoor and outdoor venues that filled with the hum of promise. They entered and were greeted by a buzz of conversation, philanthropists in tailored dresses and suits, donors clutching champagne flutes, tables set with floral centerpieces. Tyler's pulse picked up. This was elegant. Intimidating. A kindly-looking woman with a clipboard approached. "You must be Tyler. I'm Marisol, with the foundation. They're ready for you in 10 minutes. She guided him through backstage corridors into a dressing area where a stylist brushed his hair and handed him a silk scarf, meant to soften his simple ensemble. When he emerged on stage, a warm spotlight bathed him in soft amber. The audience behind rows of chairs included his mother, Mr. Reynolds, and even, to his shock, Liam Whitmore, sitting near the front, expression unreadable. Tyler glanced at him but found resolve instead of fear. He lifted the mic. Instead of a covered song, he chose one of his original pieces, the one about discovery and identity that had resonated at the Academy showcase. His voice, calm and rich, filled the hall with the honesty it deserved, unadorned yet full. The audience listened. And when he finished, the silence cracked with applause that rippled like echo, sharp, proud, and genuine. As he stepped off the stage, a voice called from behind. "That was extraordinary." He turned to see a woman in a suit, eyes bright. She introduced herself as a recruiter from the Cincinnati College Conservatory of Music's youth program, CCM Prep, which offered advanced training and mentorship for promising students like him. she said they wanted him for a scholarship interview in the fall. His breath caught. This was real. Nearby, Liam stalked by, glanced at Tyler, then turned away. It was not pity. It was something like respect, filtered through confusion. At the gala's reception, Henry Whitmore himself approached Tyler's mother. "She has quite the talent," he said, nodding at Tyler's spot in the buffet line. She smiled. "He's my son." Henry nodded sagely. "That voice reminded me why art matters." Tyler watched them from a distance. This was new territory, a place where he could be recognized without pretense. Days later, at home, Tyler held the CCM prep brochure in his hands, the pages full of possibilities. He heard his mother in the living room, negotiating logistics with Alana's mom, carpool to auditions, shared rides to the academy, support forming like a quiet village around him. He closed the brochure, his decision made. He would take that step. Because someone had seen him. And now, he was ready to see where the rest of the road might go. The day after the gala, Tyler awoke to the sound of his mother making phone calls in the kitchen. Her voice was low but determined, bouncing between words like availability, schedule, and tuition deferment. He recognized the tone, the careful balance of optimism and anxiety. It was the sound of her trying to make things work. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at his worn-out shoes. The gala had opened a door, but reality stood firmly in the doorway. Opportunity was one thing. Access was another. Tyler had received more than just applause and praise. The representative from CCM Prep had handed him a packet for fall enrollment. It included a scholarship form, a tentative weekly schedule, and a list of required supplies, voice coaches, travel commitments, possible attire for public performances. The tuition was covered, but the rest wasn't. And that meant a cost neither he nor his mother had prepared for. That afternoon, he placed the packet on the kitchen table. His mother sat across from him, her fingers clasped tightly. Her eyes were red from sleep deprivation. "I called around," she said. "Alana's mom offered to help with morning rides twice a week. I can shift my schedule for Mondays and Thursdays. But the evenings?" Tyler nodded slowly. "It's too much." "No," she said quickly. "It's just complicated." They fell silent. The kitchen window let in a pale light that made everything feel heavier. "I don't want you working more hours because of me," he said. "I already do," she replied. "Just for us to eat." That truth hovered for a moment. "I can get a job," he offered. "Evenings. After rehearsals. Or weekends." "You'll be exhausted, Tyler." "I already am." She looked down. "That's not how this should work." He didn't answer. Because he didn't know how it should work either. Dreams were supposed to feel light, like escape. But his felt heavier by the day. Later that week, at the academy, Tyler stayed late after class, rehearsing in a quiet room where the piano keys were worn soft from years of practice. Alana stopped by on her way out. "You okay?" she asked. He nodded, but his eyes betrayed the weight. "You got the CCM thing, right?" "Yeah. Full tuition. But there's other stuff. Like? Bus fare. Formal clothes. Sheet music. Rehearsal shoes. That kind of stuff." She sat beside him on the bench. "You know I've been doing this for 2 years now, right? On hand-me-downs and borrowed books." He looked at her. "You're not the only one trying to turn scraps into songs," she added. "I know. It just feels wrong. All this attention, people clapping, talking about me like I'm going places, and I'm still counting quarters for bus rides." She gave a bitter laugh. "Welcome to the club." They sat in silence. "Still," she said eventually, "you gotta go for it. Even if the road is busted. You've already started walking." Back home, Tyler found his mother talking quietly on the phone again. He didn't interrupt, but when she hung up, she looked over at him with a strange light in her eyes. "I applied for a position at the community center," she said. "They have a kitchen now. A paid one." He blinked. "What about your business?" "I'll keep that too. But if I can get this job, we'll have something steady. More hours, but less risk." He wanted to object. To say she was already doing too much. But he understood. This was how survival worked, compromises on top of compromises. If he wanted to move forward, she would move twice as hard behind him. A week passed. Tyler continued at the academy, working through voice drills, learning to read sheet music more fluently, adjusting to the discipline of routine practice. But the excitement began to dim. He started arriving to class quiet, more withdrawn. Ms. Bell noticed. "You look like you're carrying something," she said one afternoon after rehearsal. "I'm fine." "You're singing like you're not." He hesitated. Then shrugged. "I thought getting in would be the hard part," he said. "Turns out staying in is harder." She nodded slowly. "This world makes it harder for kids like you. Not because you're less talented. But because you don't have a net." He looked at her. "You're not alone, Tyler," she said. "You might not have a trust fund. But you've got something better, people who believe in what you're doing." She handed him an envelope before leaving. Inside was a handwritten note, "1 session of vocal coaching, on me. Use it when you need it. Not for technique. For strength." He didn't cry. But he folded the note like it was made of glass. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Liam scrolled through updates on his phone. Tyler's name continued to appear, now tagged in articles about the gala, mentioned in youth spotlight programs. His grandfather had asked about him again during a family dinner. "What do you think of him now?" Henry Whitmore had asked. Liam hadn't answered. But the truth was, he didn't know what he thought. There was no denying Tyler had talent. Or that his voice did something people responded to. But something in Liam resisted giving him credit. Perhaps because every one of Tyler's steps forward highlighted how little Liam had ever risked. He'd grown up with everything. Yet he had never made anyone feel anything real. Not like that. At school, Liam overheard 2 students talking about the upcoming youth showcase. Tyler's name came up again. One of them said, "I hope he makes it to the finals. He deserves it." Liam didn't respond. But he felt the edges of his world start to contract. That weekend, Tyler and his mother sat down together to do the math. They calculated the bus fares, the cost of supplies, food for long days. Every number they added felt like a subtraction from somewhere else. But they also added hope. Ms. Bell's session. Alana's rides. The community center job. Small offerings of belief. They didn't find perfect answers. But they found enough to move. Tyler signed the enrollment form. And sealed it with a breath. Because resistance is part of every dream. And he was still singing through it. The weeks rolled on with a kind of quiet fervor. Tyler balanced his academy rehearsals, the fall enrollment paperwork, and his mother's new community center job, which came with late shifts. There were nights when he fell asleep mid-lyric, his head resting against thick textbooks lying open on the floor. But he remained determined to honor every opportunity, however small the gains may seem at first. Because he had chosen this path, and that choice felt increasingly like his own. One Friday afternoon, after a grueling 4-hour technique session, Tyler left the academy center with slow steps. The sky had turned gray, and a fine drizzle started before he reached the street corner. He pulled his hood up and began the walk toward the bus stop. He always carried his case, not only for his notebook and voice supplies, but also for the few essentials he kept there, a spare shirt for rehearsal, a small bottle of water, and, lately, a small amulet his mother had given him, a polished river stone tied around a thin cord, to remind him he came from something steady. He didn't touch it often but kept it in his pocket like a silent talisman through everything. Reaching the stop, he realized the bus was late, and the rain was picking up. A middle-aged woman waited beside him under a small awning. She gave him a sympathetic look, then glanced at his music accessories. "Rough day?" she asked gently. He gave a half smile. "Long day, yeah." She nodded. "My name is Ruth. I volunteer here sometimes. I saw you coming in earlier. You were doing something important." He shrugged. "Just practicing." "Practicing can be everything," she said. "Are you headed home?" He nodded again. "Do you need a ride?" she asked. "I work at the community center across town. I can drop you off nearby if you want." He blinked, caught off guard. I appreciate it, but I'm fine." Ruth's expression stayed calm, uninsistent. "I'll be waiting if you change your mind." Just as he was about to reply, the bus came. Tyler climbed aboard with a silent thank you. But her offer echoed in him the rest of the ride. That evening, he came home to find his mother asleep on the couch, the television still humming softly. He checked the envelope with his CCM prep interview date, just 2 weeks away. The cost of clothes, books, bus fare, even musical notes printed on paper, it all weighed heavy. And he thought of Ruth, waiting there in the rain under the awning as if offering something ordinary that could feel like a lifeline. The next morning, he headed out earlier than usual toward the community center. His rehearsals had ended in the afternoon, but today he had time to kill long before them. So he stopped by the center and found Ruth organizing boxes of supplies. She greeted him with a gentle nod without surprise. "How's your day?" she asked quietly. "Busy. Audition preparation." "I remember," she said. "Well, if you need a ride tonight, honestly, I can drop you off." He stared at her for a moment, trying to figure out why he didn't say yes. Then he did. "Thank you," he said simply. That evening, when rehearsals ended, he found her waiting at the exit. She brought an umbrella, and they walked side by side through damp streets glowing with lamps. "Your mom works here now, right?" she asked, nodding toward the center. He nodded. "She cooks meals for people who learn to sew there now." Ruth smiled. "She's trying to build more than food, isn't she?" Something in that, her insight, struck him. Yeah, she is." When they reached his stop, he turned to offer a fist bump, a nod of gratitude. The week that followed, that small kindness echoed in twists he hadn't expected. One morning, Tyler arrived at school early, balancing his packed bag and CCM packet. As he waited outside the office, a voice called him inside. He stepped through the doors and found Mrs. Delgado, the school's guidance counselor, on the other side of the desk. "Tyler," she said, voice bright. "I have news." His heart clenched. "I connected you with a nonprofit called Youth Access. They help students with transportation to arts programs and supplies. They also can assist with formal attire for interviews." He stared. "They can?" She nodded, offering a folder. "They meet once a week here. I told them about you and your story." He opened the folder. Beneath a brochure, there was a handwritten note, "You matter. Youth Access volunteer." He didn't know what to say. "This is because of your auditions?" he whispered. "Because of who you are showing yourself to be," she replied softly. He left her office clutching the folder. It felt like another door opening, in the least expected place. That afternoon, while walking home with Alana, Tyler shared what happened. She punched his shoulder in excitement. "See? That's what happens when you show up." They talked, about other things, too, class workload, her favorite parts of vocal coaching, the late-night snack cart near campus. And in that easy friendship, he realized help didn't always come in applause or viral headlines. Sometimes it came quietly, like Ruth's offer, like Mrs. Delgado's connection, so he didn't have to walk alone. But not all help came quietly. That Saturday, a local news van rolled up to their modest block. A reporter approached the Brooks home, with a cameraman in tow. "Mr. and Mrs. Brooks?" the reporter asked, calling to his mother. Tyler came into view, heart pounding. They invited her onto the porch, explaining they wanted to do a human interest segment, from the corner stand to the Perth Gala rising star. He could see her hesitating, protective, but she agreed, and so did he. The story was gentle, focused on how music opened doors, how community woven by kindness had made a difference. It didn't mention controversy or viral fame. It spoke of a boy whose voice became a path, and of a mother who carried him forward, quietly moving pieces to create opportunities. When the segment aired later that evening, Tyler sat close beside his mother on the old couch. His heart thudded through every word spoken about him: humble beginnings, talent, scholarship. The final shot showed him playing his guitar softly in the living room. His phone lit up after. It wasn't hundreds of likes. It was messages from neighbors, classmates, local business owners offering support, offers to help with suit rentals, donate sheet music, provide food delivery so his mother wouldn't exhaust herself cooking. A small network swelling around them. That night, he drifted to sleep feeling held. Not famous, not invincible, but understood. Far away, Liam Whitmore watched his own reflection in a dark window after gala prep. He'd occasionally check updates on Tyler, but nothing he saw made sense, because the story had changed. It wasn't just about a viral moment. It was about a voice and a community recognizing it. And across town, Tyler wrote again in his notebook, new lyrics forming around kindness, breath, and what it meant to walk forward with others beside you. He was no longer walking alone. The morning after the television segment aired, the Whitmore estate's breakfast room was uncharacteristically quiet. The fine china gleamed beneath the chandelier, but Henry Whitmore paid no attention to his coffee or the warm buttered toast beside it. He was watching the replay of the news story on his tablet, the headline still fresh: from sandwiches to spotlights, local teen finds his voice. The clip ended with Tyler's eyes on the camera, a quiet confidence beneath his soft-spoken words. Henry sat back slowly, setting the tablet down. Across the table, Liam toyed with his spoon, pretending not to notice. "He's going to be something," Henry finally said. Liam didn't respond. The old man turned to his grandson. "Did you know he would be? When you gave him that microphone the first time?" Liam looked up, trying to read the question. "It was a joke. I didn't expect anything." Henry's voice remained even. "And yet, here we are. You trying to mock him opened the door that changed his life." "That's not fair," Liam muttered. "Everyone's treating me like I'm some villain." "You were arrogant," Henry said bluntly. "But so was I at your age. The question is, what are you going to do with that mistake?" Liam bristled. "You want me to congratulate him now? I want you to grow." Liam looked away. He couldn't explain the tightness in his chest, the sense that every step Tyler took forward became another mark against him in the eyes of the people who mattered. Later that week, Henry Whitmore made a call to Mr. Reynolds at the academy. "I'd like to meet the boy formally," he said. "Not at a gala. Quietly. On his terms." Reynolds arranged the meeting for the following Saturday afternoon, in a small rehearsal room at the academy. Tyler, though hesitant at first, agreed. He didn't understand why the patriarch of the most powerful family in the city wanted to meet with him alone, but curiosity, and something else, perhaps a desire to stand eye to eye with the weight behind the Whitmore name, led him to say yes. That afternoon, Tyler entered the room and found Henry sitting alone, leaning slightly forward on a cushioned bench near the piano. He wore no tie, no entourage. Just a simple navy coat and thoughtful eyes. "Mr. Whitmore," Tyler said, respectful but firm. "Tyler," the old man replied, rising slowly. "Thank you for agreeing to see me." They shook hands. Tyler sat across from him, placing his notebook on the edge of the table. "I won't take up much of your time," Henry began. "I've been following your journey. From the fundraiser, to the academy, to the gala. And now the conservatory. You've made quite the impact." "I just sing," Tyler replied quietly. "No, son. You do more than sing. You reveal. You remind people what it means to feel. That's a rare thing. Tyler wasn't used to praise spoken like that, measured, sincere. He nodded, unsure of what to say. I know things haven't been easy, Henry continued. But your mother has raised you well. And I believe there's more ahead for you, if you're willing. I'm willing, Tyler said without hesitation. Henry smiled. Then I'd like to help. Tyler blinked. Help? My foundation is expanding our youth artist grant program. We typically work through schools or nonprofits. But I'd like to personally fund your next phase, training, transport, materials, and anything else not covered by scholarship. Tyler sat stunned. I'm not asking for anything in return, Henry added. Just that you keep going. For a long moment, Tyler said nothing. Then, finally, he asked, why me? Because I failed to see people like you for most of my life, Henry said softly. And I won't make that mistake again. Tyler nodded slowly. Thank you. I'll think about it. Henry stood and placed a small folder on the table. All the details are there. No contracts. No tricks. Just support. They shook hands once more. Outside, as Tyler walked home, he felt the weight of the encounter settle in his chest. It wasn't just about money. It was about being acknowledged, by someone who once stood on the other side of a divide that had felt permanent. But across town, Liam was hearing the news from a source he hadn't expected, his mother. She stood in the doorway of his room holding her phone. Your grandfather is funding the boy from the fundraiser, she said. Personally. Liam looked up, caught between shock and disbelief. What? He asked. He believes in him, she said simply. He sees something there. Liam closed his eyes. The feeling was no longer anger. It was displacement. As if everything he had once known, about power, attention, inheritance, was being rewritten in front of him. And for the first time in years, he felt unsure of where he stood. The following Monday, Henry invited Tyler and his mother to dinner, not at the Whitmore mansion, but at a small restaurant they both could easily reach by bus. It was quiet, intimate, and warm. They talked over roasted chicken and soft jazz music, and Tyler watched his mother loosen her shoulders for the first time in weeks. By the end of the evening, she turned to Henry and said, We never expected help. But we're grateful. Henry nodded. Tyler's done the work. I'm just making sure the path stays clear. Outside, as they waited for the bus, Tyler turned to his mother. Did that just happen? He asked. She smiled. Yes. And you earned every bit of it. But not all stories reach everyone at the same time. At Crescent Heights, Liam sat in the library scrolling through his phone. He saw the latest article, from local talent to sponsored prodigy, Tyler Brooks secures private grant from Whitmore Foundation. He stared at the headline. Then closed the app. When he left the library, he didn't go to his next class. Instead, he walked through the empty quad, past the place where it had all started. The stage, long gone now, had left only the memory of what happened there. And for the first time, Liam wondered what it would feel like to step into someone else's story, not to control it, but to understand it. The invitation came on a Wednesday afternoon, sealed in an envelope marked with gold foil. Tyler found it in his academy mailbox, nestled between workshop schedules and vocal technique handouts. He opened it with trembling hands and read the header aloud. Whitmore Foundation Annual Gala, Guest Performer Invitation. The performance would be held in 2 weeks at the Music Hall downtown, one of the most iconic venues in Ohio. Not a school auditorium. Not a community event. A full-scale, black-tie affair with hundreds of elite guests, donors, artists, and press. Tyler would be one of 3 youth performers, but the only one given a solo centerpiece in the second act. That night, he and his mother sat at the kitchen table for hours, trying to comprehend what this meant. The clothes. The preparation. The fact that he was being given a stage that few ever dreamed of, especially someone who just a few months ago was selling sandwiches outside a prep school. But behind that moment was a tension he couldn't ignore. the Whitmore name loomed large. He had accepted Henry's support, yes, but part of him still carried the weight of how this had all begun. A dare. A humiliation. And someone, Liam, still standing in the shadows of it all. As rehearsals began for the gala performance, Tyler stepped deeper into a world that had once felt impossible. He was fitted for a tailored suit. His original piece was arranged by a professional music director. He met with a vocal coach twice a week, sponsored by the foundation, who helped him sharpen his delivery without muting his natural tone. At night, however, Tyler's thoughts were more conflicted. Was this his voice? Or one being shaped by the people funding it? One evening, after a particularly intense rehearsal, he asked Alana to meet him at their usual bench near the academy's courtyard. "I don't know if I belong up there," he said. She frowned. "What do you mean?" "It's starting to feel like I'm part of their show. Like I'm the story they want people to hear." "You are the story," she said, not unkindly. "But that doesn't mean you're not real." He nodded slowly. "Liam's gonna be there." Alana's eyes narrowed. "What?" "He's attending the gala. His grandfather told me. Said it might be good for both of us." She scoffed. "After everything he did?" "I think that's the point," Tyler said quietly. "Henry wants him to see." On the night of the gala, the music hall was flooded with lights and silk and perfume. Tyler arrived with his mother by private car arranged by the foundation. His suit fit perfectly, and for once, he didn't feel out of place, he felt composed. Backstage, he heard the muffled applause of the first act. Then the quiet shuffle as the audience returned from intermission. When his name was announced, the lights dimmed, the hall hushed, and Tyler stepped onto the stage. He stood alone. No dancers. No backdrop. Just him, a stool, a mic, and a piano to his left. Then he began. The song was his own, a culmination of the journey, written over months, shaped by fears, strengthened by faith. He didn't tell a story of triumph. He told a story of truth. Of being overlooked, of being mocked, of finding something strong beneath the silence. His voice wasn't just clear. It was commanding. And when the final note hung in the air, there was a stillness unlike any other performance before. Then the room erupted. Not polite applause. Not charity claps. A standing ovation. People rose to their feet. Some wiped their eyes. Some reached for their phones, too late to capture what had already passed. Tyler bowed once, humbly, then stepped off stage with his heart racing. In the wings, the other performers congratulated him. His vocal coach clapped him on the shoulder. The music director beamed. But Tyler was searching for only one thing, his mother. He found her in the front row, tears on her cheeks, pride shining through every breath. "Was that real?" he asked her quietly. She nodded. "It was all you." Across the hall, Liam sat with his jaw tight and his thoughts tangled. He had expected to feel anger. Maybe jealousy. But what he felt was far worse. He felt irrelevant. Because what he had once tried to turn into a joke had become art. And everyone knew it now. During the post-event reception, the room buzzed with admiration. Tyler was approached by multiple attendees, music scouts, non-profit directors, journalists. But one conversation stood out. A woman in a velvet dress introduced herself as Helena Price, a talent coordinator from the Midwest Youth Music Fellowship. "We've had eyes on you since the academy," she said. "And tonight confirmed it. We'd like to offer you a place in our winter mentorship program. It's selective, fully funded, and it includes exposure to recording sessions, industry professionals, and artist development." Tyler tried to respond but found himself speechless. She handed him a business card and smiled. "We're rooting for you." As the room continued to swirl with energy, Tyler stepped outside for air. The city lights stretched before him, distant and bright. He leaned against the marble column, letting the cold help him breathe. Footsteps approached. "Liam." He was alone, hands in his pockets. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Liam spoke. "I was wrong." Tyler didn't move. Liam continued. "Back then, when I called you up to the stage, I thought I was embarrassing you. But you showed something I didn't expect. And tonight, there's no denying it." Tyler turned to him. "So what do you want?" "I don't know," Liam said honestly. "I guess, to say I see it now. What they see in you." Tyler nodded. "It's not about them." "I know," Liam said. "It's about you." They stood in silence again. Then Liam asked something unexpected. "Do you ever get scared that it'll disappear? That the moment will pass, and you'll go back to being invisible?" Tyler didn't answer right away. "Yes," he said finally. "But I'd rather lose it honestly than hold it pretending." Liam looked away, ashamed. And in that quiet moment, Tyler felt something lift, not forgiveness, but release. He didn't need an apology. He had already moved past it. Back inside, as the guests began to leave and the stage lights dimmed, Tyler remained at the edge of the room. Observing, absorbing, remembering where he came from. What this meant. And what was still ahead. Because the stage hadn't just given him applause. It had given him voice. And from now on, he would choose where to let it echo. The days following the gala settled into an unusual stillness, not because things had stopped happening, but because the noise of attention had begun to fade into something quieter, something more enduring. Tyler no longer woke up to dozens of notifications on his phone. The headlines were slowing, and the buzz had dulled, but what remained was deeper: invitations to collaborate, weekly mentorship sessions, and more importantly, consistency. At home, his mother's routine had shifted in subtle but meaningful ways. The job at the community center became permanent, with slightly better hours and a modest increase in pay. She no longer carried that constant tension in her shoulders, the kind that made her flinch at every unexpected bill. She still worked long days, but now she returned home with energy left to ask Tyler about rehearsals or help pack his materials for the next one. One evening, while folding laundry on the living room floor, she turned to him and said, "I used to be afraid of dreaming too much for you. I thought it might make things harder if they didn't come true." He didn't look up from the socks he was paring. "I used to be afraid to dream at all." They laughed softly together, not with joy exactly, but with the comfort of understanding. At school, Tyler remained quiet in the hallways, but now, students didn't whisper about him when he passed, they greeted him. Some with nods, others with casual acknowledgments. He wasn't a symbol anymore. He was just there. And somehow, that meant more. Even teachers began to treat him differently, not with awe, but with expectation. They called on him in class more often. Encouraged him to lead group discussions. As if they now saw potential that had always been present, simply waiting for permission. But one of the more surprising changes came from Liam. Since the gala, Liam had withdrawn from his usual circles. His presence on social media slowed. His sarcastic remarks faded from classroom banter. He arrived at school on time, did his work, and left quietly. Some assumed he was embarrassed. Others believed he was simply tired of the spotlight being on someone else. Only Mr. Whitmore knew what was really happening. One Thursday afternoon, Henry asked Liam to accompany him to a business lunch. The kind of meeting the elder usually reserved for executive partners, board members, or strategic donors. Liam accepted, thinking it would be like all the others, cold introductions, formal exchanges. But when they arrived, the lunch was not with executives. It was with youth organizers, artists, and musicians from across the city. Henry introduced Liam not as an heir, but as a student learning about responsibility. Liam sat quietly at first, listening to their conversations, about funding struggles, creative programs in underfunded schools, and the importance of platforming voices that didn't often get heard. At one point, a music teacher from the South Side asked him directly, "What do you think people like you could do to help kids like mine?" Liam fumbled for words. I don't know yet. I guess I'm here to learn." It wasn't the polished answer they might have expected, but it was honest. And it marked the beginning of something new. Later, in the car, Henry turned to him. "It's never too late to become someone different, Liam. But you have to choose it." Liam nodded, unsure if he was ready, but more certain now that he needed to be. Meanwhile, Tyler received his formal letter of acceptance into the Midwest Youth Music Fellowship. He had made it through the final selection round after the gala performance and was invited to begin winter training with a cohort of 10 other rising young artists from across the state. When he told his mother, she hugged him so tightly he almost couldn't breathe. "You keep opening doors," she whispered. "And I'll keep walking behind you, closing the ones we don't need anymore." The next day, at the academy, Tyler shared the news with Alana, who erupted with excitement and demanded a celebration, milkshakes at their favorite diner. They sat in the corner booth with sticky menus and cracked leather seats, recounting the wild arc of the past few months like survivors of a storm. "You know what I love?" Alana said between sips. "You're still you. Just louder." He laughed. "I don't feel louder." She leaned in, her expression thoughtful. "Not in volume. In presence. You take up space now." Tyler nodded slowly, letting the words land. It was true. He wasn't hiding anymore. He no longer wore his headphones as a shield. He didn't lower his voice in class. He spoke, he asked, he pushed forward. Quietly, but without apology. That weekend, the Youth Fellowship hosted an informal gathering for all new members and their families. Tyler and his mother attended, not knowing what to expect. The room was filled with young artists, instrumentalists, composers, vocalists, each carrying their own unique story. He met a boy from Cleveland who rapped poetry about foster care. A girl from Dayton who played cello and worked nights at a diner to pay for her lessons. A pianist from Toledo who had performed in nursing homes before ever seeing a concert stage. Each story different, but familiar. Tyler didn't feel out of place. He felt like he'd found his people. During the closing remarks, one of the mentors stood before them and said, "You've been chosen because your voice matters. Not just what you sing or play, but how you live it. Make that your standard." Tyler scribbled the phrase in his notebook. That night, as he sat by the window in his bedroom, looking out over the familiar streets of his neighborhood, he thought not about fame, or recognition, or even music. He thought about endurance. About every moment he could have quit. Every time his voice could have been silenced. But hadn't. He picked up his guitar, not for practice, not for a performance. Just to play. For himself. Across the city, Liam sat in his own room, his laptop open to a blank document titled, "New Proposal, Whitmore Youth Initiative." He didn't know exactly what it would become. Only that it had to be more than charity. It had to be earned. He stared at the blinking cursor, then began typing. For the first time, he wasn't writing to impress. He was writing to rebuild. And somewhere between them, between the quiet of Tyler's music and the click of Liam's keyboard, something shifted. Not dramatically. Not loudly. But honestly. Because change, like healing, is often silent. And in that silence, they were both beginning again. The auditorium was silent. Rows of folding chairs stretched across the room, filled with students, faculty, family members, and community supporters. At the front of the stage stood a simple wooden podium. No banners. No grand displays. Just a microphone, a lectern, and the emblem of the Midwest Youth Music Fellowship projected in soft blue light across the back wall. Tyler sat near the side of the stage, hands folded over his lap. His name had already been called once, hours earlier, during the scholarship ceremony. He had walked onto the stage to collect his certificate, nodding politely at the applause. But this moment was different. He wasn't just receiving recognition. He was closing the event with a speech. He had been asked a week prior if he would say a few words, not as a performer, but as someone who represented the purpose of the program, transformation through art. He said yes, and then spent days writing and rewriting his speech in a notebook, scratching out entire paragraphs, wondering what mattered most. Now, as the event neared its end, the director stepped to the mic and announced, "And to conclude our evening, we invite one of our youngest fellows to speak. His journey to this stage has inspired all of us. Please welcome Tyler Brooks." The room clapped as he rose slowly and walked toward the podium. He didn't carry any papers. He didn't need to. What he had to say was no longer about rehearsed words. It was about truth. He reached the mic, took a breath, and looked out at the sea of faces. Then he began. "I didn't grow up thinking I'd ever stand in a place like this. I didn't have a lot of reasons to believe my voice mattered. For most of my life, I kept it to myself. Not because I was afraid of singing, but because I was afraid of what people would think if they really heard me." He paused, scanning the crowd, finding his mother in the front row. "I used to believe that being invisible was safer. That if I stayed quiet, nothing could go wrong. But what I've learned is that silence can be just as heavy as judgment. And when someone finally gives you a mic and you use it, even if it's just once, it changes everything." He took another breath. "I got asked to sing once because someone thought it would be funny. That moment could have ended me. But it didn't. It started something. Not because I was brave, or strong, or ready. But because the truth has a sound. And when you hear it, you can't forget it." Murmurs of agreement rippled softly through the audience. "I stand here because of people who chose to listen when it mattered. Teachers. Mentors. My mom. Friends who believed in me before I could believe in myself. And every step I took forward, they were behind me, even when it got hard." He let the moment settle. "Music saved me. Not because it fixed anything, but because it reminded me that I wasn't broken. And that maybe, just maybe, the hardest parts of your story are the ones worth singing loudest." There was silence again. A different kind of silence. The kind that carries reverence. So if anyone here ever feels like they don't belong, like they're waiting for permission to be heard, this is it. You don't have to wait. Your voice matters. And the moment you trust it, someone out there will too. He stepped back from the podium. The applause was slow at first. Then it grew, warm, rising, honest. Not a standing ovation this time. Just something deeper, approval without spectacle. Understanding. After the ceremony, people approached him, students asking to collaborate, parents sharing how much his words meant to them, organizers offering connections and future opportunities. But Tyler didn't stay in the spotlight long. After thanking the hosts and hugging his mother tightly, he slipped out into the quiet of the parking lot, breathing in the night air. It was crisp, full of fall. A familiar voice called out behind him. "Liam." He stood near the doorway, hands in his jacket pockets. "Hey," he said. Tyler turned. "Hey. I watched your speech," Liam added. "It was good." Tyler offered a nod. "Thanks." Liam hesitated, then stepped closer. "You were right, you know. Back then. It wasn't about winning or losing. I thought I was better because of where I came from. But I've been thinking a lot about what it means to actually matter. And I think you showed me." Tyler didn't say anything right away. "I'm not looking for forgiveness," Liam continued. "I just wanted to say that I'm trying. To be better. Do better." Tyler looked at him for a long moment. Then replied, "Trying to start." Liam gave a small smile, one of the few genuine ones Tyler had seen from him. They stood there in the dark, not as enemies, not even really as friends, but as two people who had once collided and were now slowly walking in different directions with a little more understanding than before. Later that night, at home, Tyler took off his jacket, sat on the floor, and opened his notebook. The pages were filled, full of lyrics, fragments of melodies, pieces of poems that hadn't yet found their shape. He flipped to the back and began to write again. This time, not a song. A memory. He wrote about the day in the school courtyard, when the mic was forced into his hands and the crowd waited to laugh. He wrote about the way the silence turned, the way people listened, the way his voice found a space he hadn't known was waiting. And at the very bottom of the page, he wrote, "They called it humiliation. I called it the beginning." Outside, the city continued its rhythm. The same lights, the same streets, the same sounds. But inside, something different pulsed through him. It wasn't fame. It wasn't validation. It was something simpler. A voice. His. And now, it echoed. Not for others. But for himself.